Okay, let's begin with the test for Unit 3 called Welfare Analysis and Policies. Okay, so the area below the demand curve and above the price paid by consumers is called, of course, consumer surplus. It's very easy. We should know that consumer surplus is the willingness to pay, that is all the area below the demand, minus the total paid by them, that is this white area. So the consumer surplus is all this blue triangle, okay, the area below the demand curve and over the price they paid. Okay, here we have another graph, and the consumer surplus, the idea is the same. The price paid is this one. Number 2. The demand for rice in France is given by the function Q equal to 100 divided by P plus 12. We see this is an hyperbolic demand. When a per unit tax of 8 is put in place on consumers, the deadweight loss is 15. What will be the deadweight loss if the tax is levied on producers? Okay, we should know that the situation where the price the consumers pay, the price the producers receive, the deadweight loss, the surpluses, the quantity exchanged, doesn't depend on who pays the tax to government. Okay, I've told you many times in class. So we don't need to do any calculations because the deadweight loss will be 15. Okay, this was a tricky question, and well, I hope you understand. I will explain later on that, remind that who bears more tax depends on who has more inelastic curve. Okay, no in the question of who pays the money to the government. Okay, so number 3, the area below the demand curve and above the supply curve is called, well, total surplus. If we have this kind of graph without the government any government policy, the area below the demand curve and over the price paid is consumer surplus, the area below the price received and over the supply is producer surplus, so all the area below the demand curve and over the supply is the total surplus. Okay, quite easy. So number 4, a 0 import quota reduces the imports to 0. Yes, of course. It has the same consequences as an autarky policy, of course, because at the end the country doesn't import anything because it doesn't allow it in this strange way. Yeah, has the same consequences as a prohibitive tariff. Yes, a prohibitive tariff would have the same consequences. That is, at the end, a market closed to trade. Okay, so all of the above. I wrote you here the definitions of the concepts that appear in this question: import quota, autarky, prohibitive tariff. Okay, here you can see them assumed if you want them. Then more, the deadweight loss. The deadweight loss may be negative. Of course not. Here's the difference between the total surplus at deficient situation and the total surplus under the situation or policy we are studying. Yes, that's the definition I usually give you, so that's the correct one. Is always a triangle? Of course not. We have seen many policies where the deadweight loss is not a triangle. Okay, needs to be calculated by integrating. No, No, if demand and supplies are straight lines, we usually calculate it as a triangle. So it's easy, it's B, yeah. This is the definition I give you usually for deadweight loss. Okay, total surplus under the efficient situation minus total surplus under the inefficient situation, that usually is under a certain policy, yeah. Well, because we don't see in this course externalities, so the efficient situation is when the government doesn't do anything. Which of the following pay in action policies is cheaper for the government? This is a good question. Pay a lump sum for the units the producers would want to produce with a higher price, or pay unit per unit price for the unit the producers would want to produce with a higher price. Well, with a lump sum payment, the producers don't produce this quantity, these units, okay, from 1 to 3.5 approximately. If the government pays them this money in euros or in monetary units, they wouldn't produce these units. Why? Because the money they would earn, they receive from government. They don't have any incentive for producing it, okay? But if the government gives the firms this difference between the price they receive from the consumers and the price they wanted to receive, at least, and all these units that the producers would want to produce are paid at this amount of money, the government spends more, spends in fact the double. So it's cheaper for the government it's cheaper for the government pay a lump sum for these units. Okay, now 7. The demand for chocolate in Aruba, a beautiful island that maybe someday we'll visit, yeah, is Q equal to 100 minus 2p, and the supply of Aruban chocolate producers is Q equal to 10 plus p. But Aruba is open to trade of chocolate, Which of the following quantities would be the prohibitive tariff in this case? Well, we don't have the world price. If we don't have the world price, we can't calculate the prohibitive tariff. The prohibitive tariff is the difference between the autarky price and the world price. Yeah, if to that world price we sum the prohibitive tariff, we find the autarky price. So foreigners don't want to introduce any unit in our country. Okay, so be careful with the reading. Yeah. Number 8. The following graph, taken from Krugman, great book for international trade, represents the sugar market in USA after an import quota. Which is the size of the import quota? Okay, if the world price is 275, the imports would be between 1.8 that the domestic producers produce, and the 6.9 that is what the domestic consumers demand. Now, if a country imposes an import quota, the price will increase, yeah, and here will appear some things we will analyze afterwards. But the import quota would be 5.7 that the consumers of the country demand minus 2.7 that the domestic producers produce. So this extra on demand should be imported. Yeah. So this is what the import quota is in this case. Okay. Now, the following graph, well, the same graph, represents the sugar market in USA after an import quota, so the same. Which is the sugar price after such a policy? Okay, the reduction in the import elevates the price. In this case, elevates the price until this level, because this exactly is the import quota. The price will be 426. So very easy and very quickly is A. Yeah. Now the same graph, but also with an import quota, which is the government revenue. Well, be careful. And when we have an import quota, the government doesn't earn anything. Yeah, it only acts like as a policeman in airports and so on, by saying, okay, I won't let you introduce more than these units, okay, but the revenues are zero, so be careful. Now, 11. The following graph taken from Krugman and import quota again, okay, so the same graph with the same policy. Which is the deadweight loss? Well, the deadweight loss is the difference, as we know, between the total surplus in the efficient situation, which is the free trade situation, and the total surplus after this policy. Well, I know, yeah, I made these graphs for you with free trade. The producer surplus, if free trade in this case, for example, at a price of 0.5, doesn't matter. I mean, this is the producer surplus, the blue triangle. The consumer surplus is the big green triangle. And if the import quota is imposed so that the price level increases to 1, then the producer surplus increases, yeah, and the consumer surplus decreases, and here we have a white area that no one gains. So this area is lost from this situation. So the deadweight loss is this, sorry, the deadweight loss is this area here in our graph is B plus C plus D, okay? So it's B, the correct answer. Perfect. 12. Now again, the same graph with an import quota. How much do USA sugar consumers, such as ice cream or candy producers, they are sugar consumers, gain with such a policy? Well, they lose, okay, they did the same graph, okay, so consumers at the beginning they had this green area, and now as consumer surplus, and then after this policy is reduced to this area, so they lost all this green part here, okay, all this green part here is a loss. So be careful. How much do USA sugar consumers gain with such a policy? They lose A plus B plus C plus D. So they gain negative. Be careful, okay? They gain negative A plus B plus C plus D because they lose A plus B plus C plus D. Well, again, an import quota, the same graph. How much do USA sugar producers gain with such a policy? Well, sugar producers, it's quite clear that before they earned this triangle here, I don't know if they gain this blue little triangle. After this policy, they gain a little bit more, yeah, the blue triangle plus this black area. So the gain is this black area. If we look for that area here, we call it A. So the answer is clearly A. Okay, let's make a little break and we continue with question. Oh no, let's do also question 14. The following graph, taken from Krugman edition, 9th edition, represents the sugar market in USA after a tariff. Be careful, a tariff. How much do USA sugar producers gain with such a policy? Well, sugar producers, they have the same situation as before. Okay, so they gain A. They gain A. The graph is the same. Now the policy is directly to the price, but the producers don't mind if this new situation comes from imposing import quota policy or from imposing a tariff. Okay, be careful. These are maybe they are not very easy questions, but they should be easy. Okay, they should be easy if you study, if you look at the graphs with care. Okay. 15th, the following graph taken from Krugman 9th edition represents the sugar market in USA after a tariff. After a tariff. Again, which is the government revenue. Okay, now the government earns money, yeah, because for each of these units that are imported, the government earns this tariff. Okay, the tariff is the difference in these prices. The graph is the same as for import quota, but now these imports are not because the government doesn't allow to import more than 3 units. Now the policy is here, the tariff is imposed, and if the numbers are done properly, we could find the same graph by a tariff as by an import quota. Okay, so the tariff should be 426 minus 275, so 151. Okay, here, and C is the area of the government revenue. Yeah, so 3 units are imported, and for each unit imported, the tariff is 151. So if we multiply it, is 453. Okay, so the following graph taken from Krugman represents again the tariff in the sugar market in USA, which is the deadweight loss. Okay, the deadweight loss now, as we should know, is just B plus D. Okay, with an import quota is all this area B plus C plus D, but now with the tariff, the area Z is not lost because it's earned by the government. So the deadweight loss is clearly B plus D. I think we all know this. Okay. Well, let's make a break and we continue with question number 17.